Stop.
Hi guys, this is DrizztFan92. Today we're actually going to be talking about some of the books. One of my biggest things is I really enjoy reading, and I try to encourage younger people to get more involved in reading. Of course, I watch TV and watch movies and play video games, but still, you can't get the same kind of feeling from a movie or a video game that you could if you read it out of a book. The cool thing about books is you don't have somebody making up the visuals for you, you know. I mean, of course they give you the description and they give you a direction to go in, but as far as the characters themselves actually go, it's more creative, I think, because you can imagine it just a little bit different, because everybody's interpretation of a book character can be a little bit different, you know, as far as in your mind the way that the character would talk, or as far as like the way the author has described what they're wearing. You know, you can determine your own like different variations of what, you know, what they are, who they are, how they are. So what we're going to be talking about today is R.A. Salvatore's The Legend of Drizzt series, which is personally one of my favorite book series of all time. I've read a lot of books. I love Stephen King. I know he's a little overrated. I do enjoy his work just because it's creepy, and a lot of his books have touched me on an emotional level, and it's really hard to do that. And I feel like a lot of authors have lost that skill, and I feel like that's very important when you're creating books for these people. Salem's Lot scared the shit out of me. It was not so much that it was about vampires and the whole monster ordeal. It's just it dealt so much with death, and it really opened your eyes to the whole idea that, you know, death is inevitable, that we're all going to die, and it was just terrifying. So I think that that's one of the best things, a good quality that good authors have, is being able to touch you on an emotional level and get you emotionally involved with the characters and the story. So the first book, of course, of the Legend of Drizzt series, I don't actually have it right now. I let a friend borrow it, but I do have the box set, so I can show you the cover of the book in case you want to go and pick it up, is Homeland. And this, of course, is about Drizzt Do'Urden. He is a dark elf, or a drow. Basically, the first book is about Drizzt, and of course how he became who he is in his time in Menzoberranzan. Basically, it's a dark underground city, and what I like about Salvatore is he touches on a lot of real world issues with his books. The biggest issue in his books is race. And, you know, we have a lot of issues going on right now, of course, with the whole Ferguson, Missouri thing and stuff. I feel like the world is turning back into what it used to be, and racism is, of course, it never died, but it is becoming a bigger problem than what it used to be. Of course, you know, there for a while it was really bad. Then people became tolerant, you know, there was peace, and then now it's just flaring back up again. So, you know, it's like one of those things where he's trying to touch people on an emotional level to where, you know, he'll get them interested in the books. It's got great storyline, good fight sequences, but also he's trying to send a message that you can't necessarily judge somebody by the color of their skin, which I think is great because it's a little incognito message. But the first one basically is about Drizzt growing up in Menzoberranzan, his experiences, you know, how the drow are, how evil they are, and, you know, just how he's so different from them. You know, the second book, which I liked, it was really good. I wouldn't call it my favorite, but is Exile. This is where Drizzt actually leaves Menzoberranzan, and he's heading for the surface. He doesn't want to be part of the Dark Elf, you know, I guess he just doesn't want to be another statistic, and you know, he realizes that if he sticks around and he stays involved with the Dark Elves, that's what he's going to become. So he makes this transition and decides to leave and, you know, be his own person, not to let, you know, the city and his race become who he is. This is a really good book. Here in a minute, I'm going to explain something confusing, but, you know, I want to explain these first because this is chronological order. Okay, The Legend of Drizzt, of course, starts with Homeland, and this is the second one. Very good book. Of course, you know, if anybody watches this, you have like younger kids. Of course, these are good books too for them. It's fantasy. It's got a lot of, ups and downs. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings, as far as like how, I guess if you wanted to give it a rating, on a scale of like PG to R, this is kind of like a PG-13. So I mean, younger kids, it's okay. I mean, there's not a whole lot of inappropriate things going on here. So totally cool for the kids to read, check out. Also adults, man, I mean, it's great. It's if you enjoy a good storyline, if you are a night owl and you just have time that you don't know what to do with yourself, good stories. I mean, the author really gets you involved. The author, by the way, is R.A. Salvatore. I'm sure I mentioned that earlier. But this is the third one. This is Sojourn. Sojourn is my favorite of all time. I love this book. There is not a book in the series that can compare to it. I mean, there's a lot of good books, but this book right here is my all-time favorite. That's Guinevere. That's his panther. Of course, I'll explain her in a little bit. But basically, this is when Drizzt leaves the Underdark, which is, like the caves and stuff. But basically, this is when Drizzt first comes up on the surface. Now in this book, he finds himself. This is where he becomes a ranger. This is when he realizes that this is who he is. There's a man that he meets. I don't know if you can see that. That guy right there. That's Montolio. Montolio is a blind ranger that teaches Drizzt everything that he needs to know, about becoming a ranger and, being at peace. And throughout this book, I mean, it's a great story point. They bring in a lot of, like, cool monsters. And this is where it really, honestly, kicks off. This is where the whole storyline kicks off from. Now, this isn't where the storyline originates from. What I mean by that, this isn't where it starts. Now, these first three books, of course, R.A. Salvatore came back and rewrote. What happened was R.A. Salvatore started out in 1988. They published a book, and I'm fairly sure it was 88. They published a book called The Crystal Shard. Now, The Crystal Shard was R.A. Salvatore's first book. Now, this book is based a lot around this character right here, Wulfgar. When he went and he wrote this book, he had to pick a sidekick for Wulfgar. That was one of the stipulations that Forgotten Realms had for him. So he had to have a sidekick for him. So what he did was he just randomly pulled a name out of his hat, or out of the hat, with a city attached to it, and that character was Drizzt. So Drizzt originally came in supposedly he was supposed to be a sidekick. Now, people who started reading the books really enjoyed Drizzt, and they realized that Wulfgar wasn't the best character because that was supposed to be his main character, and it was supposed to be about oh goodness, totally forgot that. Hold on, I had a brain fart. It's supposed to be about barbarians, basically. He's a barbarian, and people really enjoyed Drizzt, and of course he had written a few other books. So what he did was he went back and he wrote the Dark Elf trilogy, which is based around Drizzt. This ended up becoming his main character. People kind of took a shit on Wulfgar. Actually, Wulfgar kind of took a shit on himself. It wasn't really that fantastic. But basically, this is about Drizzt and Canterbury and, of course, Bruenor. There's Regis. These are a bunch of different characters. Of course, you'll learn who they are. Now, I mean, you can start with this book. I don't recommend it because it's not in chronological order, but if you want to go in like the order that they were written, this would be the book to start on. But you will miss a lot of plot points. You won't understand what's going on. I'm sure for people who first read it, they were a little confused as to, Anyways, good book. Basically, it's about a giant crystal. There's a demon in it, Urtu, badass. He plays a big part throughout all the books. Very good book. For as far as the Icewind Dale trilogy goes, this is my second favorite. I'm getting ready to tell you my my all-time favorite as far as the Icewind Dale goes. Good book, check it out. Definitely give it a read. Now, my favorite, Streams of Silver. Love, love, love this book. It is so good. Oh my god. Streams of Silver is where Artemis Centauri comes in. He's an assassin, total beast. There are a lot of crazy things that happen in this book that actually shapes Drizzt's life as far as with his companions and stuff go. There's a lot of important plot points in here, a lot of, expansion as far as like where they travel. Very good book. Let me see here. Is this the one that has the Troll Wars? Well, this book I got through maybe a day. It is so good. It is fantastic. And also, Salvatore's books, I mean, they're pretty good about being, you know, fairly long books. Yeah, they're usually about 380 pages long, so it's not like, you know, a really short book where you pick it up and then you're like, okay, now what am I going to read? There's also like 27 of these books in the series, so if you run out of things to read, you're probably just, I don't know, retarded. Great story, great plot points, just an all-around amazing book. Now, the third book of the Icewind Dale trilogy, and this is just for my first video, of course, I'm going to go through and make a shit ton of videos talking about the different books. The Halfling's Gem. The Halfling's Gem, of course, is an amazing book. Like I said, I love Streams of Silver, but this is also a very good book. In this book, basically, this is kind of a rescue book. One of the companions, you know, gets into some trouble, and this is where you learn a lot about Regis, which is the halfling in this book. You know, you learn a lot about the characters. You know, that's where they start making a lot of big emotional bonds. If I'm not mistaken, I think this is where the Harples come in, if I'm not mistaken. But again, this is another big book for Artemis Entreri. Artemis is a very good character. He's an ass, a huge asshole, and I mean, he's an amazing villain. As far as like pairing somebody up to have a bad guy. Oh, this is, come here, Ellie. This is Ellie. That's my baby. She's about a year old, and she has this little pretty pink scar on her nose because she decided to get out of her kennel. Sorry, totally got off track there. But as far as setting somebody up with a villain, you know, with, you know, just a rival, I feel like Artemis Entreri and Drizzt are amazing. Drizzt is a two-hand fighter. He uses scimitars. He dual wields. Very amazing. I mean, just the way he's written, the combat scenes, the way that Salvatore wrote these is incredible. There is nothing that compares to it. Now, it does get a little redundant at times because of the fight sequences. There's a lot of moves that he uses that Salvatore explains a lot of the times the same way, the exact same way every time he fights. But still, incredible fight sequences, incredible read, very good, highly recommended. If you have not ever read any of these series, I would definitely recommend you going and getting them. Don't pirate. A lot of people will download books and stuff like that. I don't condone that because I feel like, you know, it is taken away from the author. And again, you know, I know a lot of people are going to probably fuss about that. But I mean, books to me are something that can never be replaced. Books are like the last good remaining thing, you know. It's well, here's for instance, I have a Nook. Okay, love my Nook. Show you my Nook. I love my Nook. It's great because when you travel, instead of having like 15 books that you want to take with you, this holds like hundreds of books, so it's great. But you don't get this, you know. You don't get the smell of the books. I mean, and oh, check out these books, by the way. My fiance says I'm a bit of a book nerd and that I am a little bit ridiculous when it comes to my books. That looks brand new, right? I've had that for over 2 years. Check out that spine, immaculate. I'm sorry. I'm a huge book nerd, and that is my favorite things, and I get totally anal about my books, man. Like, I literally wash my hands before I read my books. But anyways, guys, if you have any questions, concerns, anything that you would like to say, of course, you can comment below, subscribe. You know, and again, you know, I'm going to be making more of these videos. And of course, I'm going to talk about other things besides books. You know, books is one of my big things. But I'm also going to talk about reptiles. Eventually, I'm going to make a video with my bearded dragon, Larry. He is awesome. His name is Balerion. And that, of course, is one of the dragons, the dragon that formed the Iron Throne in Game of Thrones. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week with another video.